Simpsons fans are on edge again. Social media is buzzing, and forums are filled with headlines. They did it again. All because attentive viewers have found hints in old episodes about events that could happen as soon as 2026. Some are talking about political changes, others about technological leaps, and some are even discussing potential disasters. And all of them are searching for answers in the cartoon that has already shocked people more than once with the incredible accuracy of its predictions. The Simpsons phenomenon has long since gone beyond the boundaries of ordinary animation. It's more than just a show, it's a repository of possible futures. Episodes that aired decades ago suddenly turn out to be a mirror of current events. And with each new coincidence, fans are increasingly starting to wonder, where is the line between a joke and a prophecy? To understand why predictions for the year 2026 are so intriguing to viewers, it's enough to remember how it all began. And it began with a virus. Spring of 2020. The world is gripped by anxiety. People are stockpiling toilet paper, wearing masks, flights are being cancelled, quarantines are being imposed. And at that moment, the internet suddenly remembers an old episode of The Simpsons where the residents of Springfield are struck by the Osaka flu. And that's when the real storm begins. The episode called Margin Chains from season 14, episode 21, suddenly goes viral. Couriers from Japan sneeze into a box, and then, like a snowball, the disease spreads throughout the entire city. Panic, mass infections, the search for a cure, and supermarket shelves cleared out by shoppers. It's too similar to just brush off. Fans rewatch every frame and even find things they hadn't noticed before. The characters' anxious lines, the visual details, the atmosphere, everything seems to mirror the news from the spring of 2020. It's not just a coincidence, it makes you question whether it was accidental. The moment that was especially striking was when a truck with the inscription Osaka flu appeared in the episode. It becomes a symbol of the pandemic in animated form. The similarity of the symptoms, the speed at which the disease spreads, even the authorities responsible of it felt eerily familiar. And now, when people discuss what exactly The Simpsons predicted for 2026, fans are no longer joking. Because with the coronavirus, they already hit the mark once, which means their next prediction should be taken seriously. But the strangest thing is, this is far from the only case. They also predicted technological revolutions. For example, what we wear right on our wrist today. Smartwatches and FaceTime future on your wrist. If you think that wearable technology, video calls, and smartwatches are something from just the last 10 years, The Simpsons will surprise you again. In Season 6, Episode 19, titled Lisa's Wedding, the viewer is shown the future, the year 2025. Lisa has grown up, falls in love with a guy, and in this episode, we see video calls and smartwatches for the first time. And not just as background details, but as an active part of everyday life. Back then, in the mid-90s, such gadgets seemed like something out of science fiction. A phone on your wrist, a call with video only in James Bond movies. But the writers of The Simpsons showed it calmly, without emphasis, as if it were already commonplace. And how surprising it was when, 2 decades later, Apple introduced its first smartwatches, and video calls via FaceTime or Zoom became the norm. Interestingly, the episode Lisa's Wedding is full of technological predictions. It features digital billboards, home automation, and even voice assistants. What has become part of our everyday life today seemed like science fiction in the 90s, but for The Simpsons, it was simply a backdrop for a love story. Fans are still wondering how the writers could predict such accurate details about the future. Is it just a coincidence or the cold calculation of analysts from the world of animation? Or maybe there's someone on their team who can simply see the future. But all of this is just a warm-up before a bigger and much more global prediction, one that is connected to an entire entertainment empire. Disney is buying everyone. The Simpsons are not just about viruses and technology. In Season 10, Episode 5, titled When You Dish Upon a Star, something appears on screen that at the time seemed like a good joke. On the sign of the 20th Century Fox studio, in large letters, it says, a division of Walt Disney Company. Ironic? Absolutely. But almost 20 years later, in 2019, this becomes reality. Disney actually buys 20th Century Fox for tens of billions of dollars and turns what was once an independent film studio into part of its media empire. The exact match in the name, wording, and even the visual style of the signal of this surprised fans so much that the episode went viral on the internet again. Of course, some might say, well, Disney has long been a giant, and it was logical that they would absorb one of their competitors. But don't forget, in the 90s, this seemed unthinkable. Fox produced adult shows, was bold and independent, while Disney was associated with cartoons about mermaids and mice. Their merger seemed like a joke until it became reality. This episode became a favorite among fans of conspiracy theories. And if that prediction turned out to be true, then perhaps there are other phrases, lines, or signs in The Simpsons that seem funny now but will prove prophetic in the future. And now things get even more interesting, because the fans are once again on the edge of their seats, The new cycle of predictions points to the year 2026. Fans are speculating about what will happen in 2026. Today, Reddit, TikTok, and YouTube are overflowing with theories. What have the Simpsons prepared for the year 2026? Users are carefully rewatching old episodes, searching for hints, inscriptions, and scenes with calendars. Everything that even remotely points to a specific date is in the spotlight. And although the cartoon itself does not directly mention events specifically in that year, there are episodes that, according to fans, point exactly to this period. One such episode is Bart to the Future, Season 11, Episode 17. In it, Lisa becomes President of the United States after a certain President Trump. And although the episode does not specify exactly which year it is, the chronology of events and the characters' ages give reason to speculate. It could be somewhere in the mid-2020s. Moreover, fans have noticed an interesting detail. In some episodes, digital displays with future dates are shown, and one of these dates 2026 flashes by in the episode Future Drama, Season 16, Episode 15. There, Bart and Lisa see their future, and the calendar that appears for a split second has now become the subject of close analysis. Some people talk about an upcoming technological breakthrough, others about a change of power, and some even about global catastrophes. But one thing is certain, the interest in this date is enormous. The Simpsons have hit the mark more than once, and now viewers are afraid to miss the next prediction. And perhaps part of the answer lies in the past itself, because several decades before all this talk, The Simpsons had already predicted something absolutely wild, a president who actually became reality. President Trump, it all started with Bart. If anyone claims that Donald Trump's presidency was unpredictable, fans of The Simpsons will just smirk, because back in 2001 there was that very episode, Bart to the Future, where Lisa Simpson, already in the role of President of the United States, anxiously says, "We've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." A joke? Yes. A prediction? Absolutely. And nearly 2 decades later, in 2016, it became reality. Donald Trump becomes president, and once again the Simpsons are ahead of everyone. This episode became legendary. People rewatched it, discussed it, analyzed every line. What truly amazed fans wasn't even the mention of the name itself, but the context. Lisa comes to power as a representative of a new generation of change, against the backdrop of chaos left by the previous administration. Sound familiar? More than ever. Especially considering the real political and social controversies that swept through America in those years. And against this backdrop, an especially interesting question arises. If the Simpsons were able to predict such an eccentric leader, who else have they predicted, or are predicting right now? It only gets more impressive from here. After all, the cartoon managed to depict corruption in FIFA 2 years before the major scandal broke out. Was it just a coincidence, or yet another prophecy that played out perfectly? FIFA, corruption, and the championship. The year is 2015. World news is making headlines. Top FIFA officials are arrested on charges of corruption, arrests, interrogations, high-profile resignations, and suddenly someone remembers. The Simpsons already talked about this. They didn't just hint or make ironic jokes, they literally showed a scene where a representative of a football organization admits to corruption, 2 years before the real-life scandal. We're talking about the episode You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee. Season 25, Episode 16. Homer Simpson goes to Brazil to referee matches at the World Cup. And in this episode, one of the Football Federation officials begs Homer not to referee honestly. Why? Because the outcome has already been fixed. At first, the public treated the episode as just another satire. Typical Simpsons humor, jokes about bribery, absurd scenes, corrupt officials. But when it turned out in real life that FIFA was indeed mired in corruption, the episode took on a whole new meaning. The level of coincidence amazed even the skeptics. The writers didn't just make a joke, they almost exactly depicted the model of the corrupt system that existed within FIFA. This made many people wonder, do the writers actually know something, or are they just incredibly perceptive about where the world is heading? Football, as we know, reflects society, and if The Simpsons portrayed it so accurately, perhaps the show isn't that far from the truth in other aspects of life as well. And the next chapter is proof of that. Because if Lisa Simpson is predicting the outcome of the Super Bowl and Lisa's intuition, usually sports predictions are the domain of bookmakers and analysts. But in The Simpsons, it's Lisa who does this. In the episode Lisa the Greek, Season 3, Episode 14, she starts predicting the outcomes of American football games and guesses with astonishing accuracy. This is what makes this episode particularly interesting. Its ending was specifically changed depending on who actually won the Super Bowl that particular year. And moreover, in one of the episodes, she predicts a victory for the Washington Redskins. Years later, the team actually wins. Coincidence? Fans began to notice. The Simpsons often make surprisingly accurate sports predictions in general. And although it's not always presented as a prediction of the future, there are too many coincidences to simply write them off as humor. The writers manage to sense the mood, draw conclusions years in advance, and sometimes even seem to look beyond the horizon. Lisa the Greek is one of those episodes where, at first glance, it's just a family story. Homer uses his daughter's talent for betting, but it was this very storyline that became the starting point for one of the most talked about phenomena of sports predictions. And fans still rewatch the episode before every Super Bowl, hoping to find a new clue. But the most incredible part is yet to come. Because in one of the episodes, the Simpsons not only predicted the outcome of a match, but also the humiliating defeat of an entire football nation. Germany crushes Brazil. In 2014, the football world was stunned. Germany humiliates Brazil with a crushing 7-1 victory in the World Cup semi-final. Fans were in shock. The tournament hosts had never experienced such humiliation before. But what's surprising is that the Simpsons had already shown this. And not just any defeat, but specifically a match between Germany and Brazil where Brazil suffers a loss. That same episode, You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee, which also featured the corruption storyline, turned out to be a double prediction. According to the plot, Germany wins the World Cup held in Brazil. When the episode aired, no one paid much attention to it. Well, so what if Germany won? But when this exact scenario came true down to the details, people started talking about the Simpsons phenomenon again. What was especially shocking was how the fans' reactions, the atmosphere of defeat, and even the gameplay on the field were portrayed all closely resembled the real match. Of course, the Simpsons didn't mention the exact score, but the overall message that Germany would defeat Brazil in Brazil turned out to be 100% accurate. All of this leads to an obvious conclusion. The writers either have some special intuition, or maybe they're just able to analyze events so deeply that they can predict future trends. And what's most astonishing is that their accuracy even extends to the world of science. Nobel laureates were predicted in a school notebook. In the episode Elementary School Musical, Season 22, Episode 1, Lisa and her friends place bets on potential Nobel Prize winners. One of them is Bengt Holmström. At the time the episode aired, he was a little-known economist, but in 2016 he actually won the Nobel Prize in Economics. Another coincidence? Maybe? But when fans started rewatching the episode, it turned out that the names on the list matched the laureates for several years ahead. Of course, not all of them, but the hit rate was too high to just laugh it off. The internet literally went crazy at that point. Images of the board with the names written on it spread across social media. People started analyzing how the writers could have guessed so accurately. Maybe it was simply the result of consulting with economists, or perhaps there's a true forecasting genius sitting in the Simpsons writers' room. Interestingly, Lisa isn't a character who is often associated with reason, logic, and science. And yet, it's through her that the show often makes these intellectual hints. So her predictions aren't just plot elements, but a kind of beacon for attentive viewers. But the next episode will show that it's not just intelligence, but also technology that became the subject of the Simpsons prophecies long before we started living in a digital reality. Virtual reality is coming. The Simpsons first aired back in the late 80s, and since then it has repeatedly depicted the future. But one of the most striking examples is connected to virtual reality technology that in recent years has become part of our everyday lives. In the episode Friends and Family, Season 28, Episode 2, Mr. Burns hires the Simpson family as digital avatars to replace his real relatives. He puts on a VR headset, and suddenly he's in a digital space where the Simpsons live, play with him, and entertain him. All of this happened before metaverses and VR headsets became mainstream. The scenes with Burns in the virtual room look like an exact counterpart to what Oculus or Meta offer today. Motion control, interaction with virtual objects, changing environments, all of this appeared in The Simpsons long before VR became commercially successful. Today, VR is used in gaming, medicine, and education. But The Simpsons showed it as something normal even before it actually became the norm. That's why fans started to get scared. What if everything shown there really does come true? And this question becomes especially unsettling when virtual reality intersects with politics. After all, the show contains hints about future leaders and recognizable details of their images. And when it comes to Kamala Harris is like Lisa Simpson. When Kamala Harris first appeared in public in her famous purple suit, the internet practically exploded. Thousands of users flooded Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok with comparison photos. On one side was the real US Vice President, and on the other, Lisa Simpson in an identical purple blazer, pearl necklace, and earrings. And this is a shot from that very episode, Bart to the Future, where Lisa becomes president of the country. Is it just a coincidence? Hardly. In the episode, Lisa comes to power after President Trump to restore order in a devastated America. Fans immediately drew a parallel with Harris's political career. A progressive young woman who rose to prominence amid political instability. Even her manner of speaking and confident demeanor reminded viewers of the cartoon Lisa. And now let's add the previously predicted Trump presidency to this. So, first the cartoon accurately predicted one leader, and now it's showing something very similar to the next one. And again, long before anyone could have imagined such a scenario, if this really is just a coincidence, then it's an incredibly accurate one. These days, fans often discuss whether Kamala Harris will become president in 2026, and if she does, it won't be a surprise to those who have watched The Simpsons, especially considering how accurately the show has predicted other major upheavals. For example, the financial collapse of an entire country, the economic collapse of Greece. The financial meltdown in Greece became one of the main topics in world news in the early 2010s. But long before that, in season 23, episode 10 titled Politically Inept with Homer Simpson, The Simpsons featured a news sticker with the headline, Europe puts Greece on eBay. It's a joke, of course, but it sounds eerily accurate. When the episode aired, Greece was already experiencing economic difficulties, but the collapse hadn't happened yet. And when, a few years later, the country was practically on the verge of default, the scene from the cartoon resurfaced in the news. People took screenshots, shared them on social media, and discussed it. Once again, they seem to know everything in advance. Interestingly, this episode also focuses on populism and the influence of the media topics that would later become defining in the politics of many countries. Homer Simpson becomes a TV commentator, and his influence on politics grows to an absurd level. But this absurdity in the show surprisingly accurately reflects reality. Financial crises are complicated things, but The Simpsons show that satire can in fact be a very precise tool for analysis. And if a cartoon managed to predict even such complex events as the default of an entire country, should we really be surprised that it has repeatedly hinted at threats coming not from the Earth, but from the sky? A strike from space. In the episode Bart's Comet, season 6, episode 14, Bart accidentally discovers a comet heading straight for Springfield. At first, the townspeople panic, then they go into denial, then they build a shelter, and in the end, they face the catastrophic bait in a comedic fashion. The scene where all the townspeople are crammed into a tiny bunker, squeezed together, frightened and desperate, seemed like a parody of paranoia. But when in recent years real astrophysicists began talking about the risk of Earth colliding with asteroids, this episode took on new meaning, especially in the context of NASA ramping up programs to track objects potentially hazardous to the planet. In 2022, NASA successfully deflected an asteroid for the first time using the DART spacecraft. This was a breakthrough, but at the same time, a reminder the threat from space is not a fiction. And The Simpsons were already joking about this topic back in the 90s with remarkable detail and with accurate depictions of the reactions of society officials and the media. And although the episode ends with a rescue, fans today rewatch it with a sense of unease. After all, if this too turns out to be yet another prophecy, then the humor of The Simpsons becomes something much more serious than just jokes on television. And if threats from space seem distant, then crises much closer to Homerite here on Earth are far more real, and they come with global consequences, worldwide collapse. The plots of The Simpsons often seem exaggerated, but only until the moment they become reality. Hints of large-scale global crises are scattered throughout various episodes of the cartoon, from economic upheavals to social uprisings. In the episode Homer vs. Dignity, Season 12, Episode 5, there is a scene where Homer causes panic on the stock market, and in the Full Monty Season 22, Episode 6, the media create a fictional pandemic to control the population. Individual episodes show destroyed cities, empty stores, protests, police measures. All of these became topics that the world discussed in 2020 and later. Fans have compiled entire collections of episodes in which The Simpsons predicted currency devaluation, food shortages, and the rise of digital surveillance. One of the recurring themes is the lack of government oversight and the growing influence of megacorporations. It's hard to say which of these scenes will turn out to be prophetic for 2026. But with each new coincidence, trust in mere chance keeps diminishing. If the cartoon has already been right more than once, maybe it's telling us now, get ready, especially since these same episodes contain predictions about the future of technology. And if even those predictions are unsettling, it means we really are on the verge of something big. Technologies that frighten us? The future has arrived. Smart homes, cameras everywhere, voice assistants, facial recognition, algorithms controlling our social media feeds, all of this was shown by The Simpsons long before we got used to it ourselves. In the episode The Fat Blue Line, Season 31, Episode 3, the police use data analysis to predict who will commit a crime. It's not so funny anymore, is it? Or take the episode Holidays of Future Past, Season 23, Episode 19. In it, the Simpson children live in a digital world where everything is tracked and real life has almost disappeared. Society is divided by levels of access to technology, and people seem to live inside corporations. Back then, viewers laughed, but now they're silent because the social credit system in China, the widespread adoption of artificial intelligence, and the replacement of real communication with digital avatars, all of this is no longer science fiction, and all of it was in The Simpsons. Fans are discussing. Maybe a breakthrough is being prepared for 2026, or on the contrary, digital control will intensify to frightening proportions. The episodes give us hints, but no answers. And that's the most unsettling part. One main question remains: how do The Simpsons predict all of this? Is it luck, masterful satire? Or is there much more truth hiding behind their yellow faces than we think? Prophecy or just a joke? And here we are at the final line. Behind us are viruses, elections, corporations, asteroids, smartwatches, financial crashes, and even football scores. All these events have already happened, and all of them were predicted, albeit in a humorous animated form by The Simpsons. It's hard to believe these are just coincidences. They hit the mark too often, describing with uncanny accuracy things that would later become news headlines, sometimes decades before the events themselves. And each time it seemed, no, this time it's just a coincidence. And every time a new spot-on prediction, yet another coincidence that for some reason matched reality again. Fans are increasingly asking themselves, what if it really is a prophecy? Of course, no one actually believes that Matt Groening is a time traveler, but there is a sense that the Simpsons writing team has a special way of looking at the world, seeing patterns, picking up on subtle signals that others miss, and turning them into cartoon episodes that at first seem like jokes, but later become a frightening reality. Today, as discussions about the year 2026 are gaining momentum, we find ourselves returning once again to the old episodes. We rewind, scrutinize, and wonder where a new hint might be hidden, what else we've missed, what has already been predicted but not yet understood. Once, all of this could have remained just an amusing coincidence, but now, after viruses, presidents, and VR, The Simpsons have stopped being just a cartoon. They have become a mirror of the future, which, as it turns out, laughs not only at the present, but also at what still awaits us. And if you've watched until the end, think about what you saw in these predictions. And most importantly, are you ready for the possibility that The Simpsons will be right again?